Over 70 million Americans are participating in a massive, unregulated biological experiment, swallowing a daily dose of melatonin supplements to combat a global sleep crisis. Taking melatonin to force unconsciousness is a misunderstanding of the chemical's role. It functions strictly as a timing mechanism, a hormonal signal that tells the brain exactly when to begin the transition toward sleep, rather than a sedative that initiates the state itself. Because melatonin belongs to the same class of chemical messengers as estrogen or testosterone, it communicates with the entire endocrine system. In developing bodies, introducing high levels of this messenger can create a false hormonal signal that mimics a contraceptive, potentially disrupting the natural onset of puberty. You cannot bully the brain into shutting down with a pill. True sleep is a highly specific sequence that only occurs when your body satisfies two completely distinct biological engines. Bypassing those mechanical requirements with synthetic hormones leaves the root cause of exhaustion completely untouched. We are aggressively medicating ourselves, yet remaining chronically exhausted. The first required engine for unconsciousness is sleep drive. Throughout the day, your cells consume glucose to keep you moving. As they burn that energy, they excrete a chemical byproduct called adenosine. This adenosine builds up in your brain and physically locks into specific neural receptors. The more receptors filled by adenosine, the more intense the chemical pressure to sleep becomes. When you drink a cup of coffee, the caffeine doesn't actually give you energy. Caffeine shares an almost identical molecular structure to adenosine. It slides right into those exact same receptor sites and acts as a neurological roadblock, preventing the brain from feeling the accumulated sleep pressure. This mechanic is why a napa latte is so effective. If you quickly drink a coffee and immediately take a 25-minute nap, the brief sleep clears out the adenosine currently docked in your brain. By the time you wake up, the caffeine has digested and easily occupies those newly emptied slots. But you cannot permanently cheat your chemical sleep drive. The caffeine eventually wears off, the blockade drops, and a massive wave of accumulated adenosine crashes into the receptors, overwhelming the system. This tracker shows exactly what happens to your cardiovascular system as you transition into sleep. You'll notice the heart rate strictly crossing a FERD threshold, 60 beats per minute. To enter a true state of unconsciousness, your heart rate must drop below this exact number. Routine nighttime behaviors easily break this sequence. Digesting a late meal, consuming alcohol to wind down, or simply standing up to check a phone will instantly spike your heart rate back above 60 BPM, halting the transition. Without crossing that cardiovascular threshold, your body is blocked from entering stage 4 sleep. This is the only phase where the brain activates its glymphatic system, a physical fluid wash that sweeps through the brain to scoop out toxic proteins. Without that physical rinse, metabolic byproducts are allowed to linger. Over time, these proteins can accumulate and tangle around nerve cells, creating the physical environment that researchers increasingly link to the onset and progression of Alzheimer's. The second engine, sleep rhythm, is driven by a specific marker in your DNA called the PER3 gene. It dictates the exact hours your brain releases melatonin and hits peak cognitive performance. This gene creates 4 distinct timing profiles, or chronotypes: early bird lions, midday bears, late-night wolves, and highly sensitive dolphins. The industrialization of labor completely ignored these genetic variations. To maximize factory output, the system enforced a standardized 9-to-5 schedule that assumed every human body operated on an identical clock. We continue this mismatch today. Forcing a genetic night owl into a 6 a.m. school bus commute actively suppresses their academic and cognitive potential. When humans leave Earth entirely, managing this rhythm becomes a matter of survival. Aboard the International Space Station, astronauts experience 12 sunrises a day. NASA engineers had to implement exacting artificial light schedules to manually anchor the crew's biological clocks and prevent total physical breakdown. The result is a global culture operating in a state of chronic biological friction, where the demands of our modern schedule consistently override the genetic requirements for our health. This conflict between our biology and our habits becomes painfully obvious in the middle of the night when you suddenly wake up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, completely unable to fall back asleep. This line graph maps exactly what is happening inside your body at that moment. As you sleep, your core temperature steadily drops. To prevent you from going hypothermic, a hardwired mammalian survival feature triggers a sudden thermal spike between 1 and 3 a.m. This spike automatically wakes you up. The natural response is to grab your phone to check the time or walk to the bathroom. But that physical movement and the stress of doing mental math instantly drives your heart rate above 60 beats per minute. The physiological solution requires you to remain completely still. Using a technique like 4-7-8 breathing, inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8, manually decelerates your cardiovascular system, dragging your heart rate back down below the necessary threshold. Restorative sleep isn't something you can manufacture through sheer willpower or an unregulated handful of gummies. It is a state the body enters only once its strict mechanical and chemical thresholds have been met.